Hi friends, Evelina here. Welcome to the Homecomings podcast, an Audible initiative sharing vulnerable conversations with purpose-driven creatives on their life journeys, all with the intention to inspire people listening to discover the meaning of home in their own lives and come deeper back to their truest versions of self. We use home as a metaphor to represent all that beckons comfort, familiarity, and belonging for your unique life journey. Whether that's through the work that you do, the people you surround yourself with, or the things that bring you the most joy in life. Because to live a life with more home means to live a more mindful and beautiful life. And isn't that the greatest intention for us all? I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. Hello, friends. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another episode of the Homecomings podcast. I am your guest, Evelina Olachowska, brand strategist, designer, creative human, working with other creative humans or purpose-driven entrepreneurs to really connect them with their purpose and unearth their special gifts in the world. My guest on the show today is my dear friend, mentor, teacher, guide, Courtney Bohlman. This is a good one, guys. It's so good. Every time I go to sit down and edit these episodes, I'm just reminded of how moving and impactful the conversations are because I pre-record these, then, a couple months go by and then I launch them. So I'm always very pleasantly moved and surprised when I sit down and I'm like, oh my God, we talked about so many good things. And today's episode, no exception. So Courtney is, she's a dear human, truly, in so many regards. One of the biggest reasons being she was my guide and teacher when I was in India doing my 200-hour yoga teacher training just this past December. So a couple months ago, I was not in my cozy little Connecticut home. I was living in an ashram in northern India in Rishikesh getting my 200-hour yoga teacher training certification. And whew, was that a life-changing experiences. If you guys are curious to know more about that, tune into the first episode of this season, season 2, where I dive really deep and unpack that journey of the takeaways, the lessons that I garnered, because it was a big one, guys. It was really, really something. But I said yes to India for a lot of reasons. For one, it was something that I've always wanted to do. I'm sure for people listening, everyone has that running list of I guess we could call it a bucket list, right? Like that running list of things that we keep tucked away of I want to do XYZ at some point in my life. And so when I found yoga during COVID, during the pandemic, when all gyms were locked down and I didn't know what to do with myself, I was going crazy. My CrossFit and boxing gyms were shut down. And I was like, how do I maintain my outlet, my physical fitness outlet? And on a whim, I found a YouTube yogi. Shout out to Boho Beautiful. She's fantastic. But I got into doing daily yoga and I fell in love with it. I had taken a couple classes here and there, but I never really felt into yoga until I met this YouTube yogi. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So that kind of perked my curiosity. And I kind of told myself, I would love to get certified one day. I'd love to actually get my 200-hour YTT because I'm such a ever curious person. If I have the opportunity to learn how to do something, I want to learn how to do it right. I will go down the rabbit holes. And so if it comes to training, certifications, I am all in. So I told myself, if I get the opportunity to do this, I'm doing it. But it has to be right. And there was no urgency around it. I just kind of set the intention, I let it go. And then, I don't know, a couple of years go by. I'm in Florida, St. Pete, subleasing. This was 2023, so last year, earlier last year. I'm in April, or I'm in St. Pete in April, subleasing for a month, and I connect with Courtney in the most kismet, spontaneous way. And as soon as I connected with her, there was just this energetic, heck yes, you are. I just feel something. When you meet those people and you just instantly feel like either you knew them in a past life or you just feel so safe and present and calm and good, and they're just like, the energy is just so good. And vice versa happens when those people that you meet that you just kind of get the creeps. You're like, who are you? Like, get away from me. Like, of course it goes both ways. But with Courtney, it was just this instantaneous grounding and this curiosity, like the seed that was planted for me of like, I really want to get to know her more. And what is beautiful about her and her incredible business, Wholesome Alchemy, is she hosts these international retreats and cultivates this incredible community of mostly women. It's evolved to become mostly women, um, all around the world. And this yoga teacher training, I remember I had gone on her website and I saw this was April. So in December, there was going to be a yoga training in December. And I was like, I knew immediately. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get to India, how I'm possibly going to afford this, how I'm going to unplug from my business for an entire month. But I just knew in my heart, like, I am freaking going. This felt right. I'm like, if I'm going to get certified to teach yoga, what better way to do it than actually going to India, like the home of yoga? And this was something, shout out to my roommate, Jen, who really kind of nudged me to say yes, because when she basically reiterated that to me, I was like, you're so right. Like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it this way. And I'm so glad I did. Yes, because it was in India. So maybe we could say it was a more authentic experience. But my biggest takeaway from that whole retreat was doing it with Courtney. I think having the right teacher, the right mentor, the right guide in your life when it comes to anything, whether it's learning any course or program, business, personal life related, coach, the right person can make or break your experience. And I can wholeheartedly express and say that Courtney absolutely made this experience for me. And I can't speak for everyone else, but I probably can speak for everyone else on the yoga retreat and say that she definitely made that experience for everyone there. And for those tuning into this episode and listening, you will undoubtedly hear just her energy, her vibe, her incredible, I don't even know, her grounding and safety, just the way that she's able to cultivate and hold so much space is immediately, like truly, like just so wherever you are tuning into this episode, I hope you have a nice warm cup of tea in your hand. Maybe you're driving somewhere scenic, like really just enjoy, because the topics we get into, the again, the energy that this conversation has is really so, yes, it's grounding, but it also has so much like impact and power. I want to say, like, those are the words that are coming to me, because Courtney's mission and purpose and her life's work in this world is nothing short of, I mean, really purpose driven. She's so rooted in her purpose and her conviction and her why, and everything that she's built through her company, through Wholesome Alchemy, and what she's doing in the world is nothing short of inspiring. So, in this episode, we talk all about her journey, her starting Wholesome Alchemy, the power of community, why she's decided to center her business around hosting in person retreats, what it means to truly cultivate an authentic community. And it's actually not that hard if we really kind of take a step back. There's no fancy bells or whistles or strategy. It really comes down to you being you and you embodying your unique inherent essence. And then we go down a really beautiful rabbit hole, which is the dynamics of feminine and masculine energies. And this topic, guys, if you're new to this topic, um, I'm excited for you guys to listen, because Courtney breaks it down and she gives such an incredible high level, but also we get into some details, just overview of what it means to live in balance with our masculine and feminine energies. Courtney gives the lowdown on all of it, and it left me so expanded, as it's a topic that's really near and dear and personal to me, as I've been really diving down the rabbit holes of figuring this out for myself and questioning, how do I show up in the world? Am I leading from a place of openness and femininity, or am I trying to control and force and, yeah, white knuckle life, which is a lot of the energies of the masculine? So incredible insights there. And then we close our conversation by talking about how to open ourselves up to receive. Receivership cannot happen without giving. We have to give in order to receive, and vice versa. And manifestation. the challenges with manifesting. If you want something, what does it really mean to have it? If we really want to call something into our lives, whether it's money, whether it's a new job, whether it's a relationship, how do we do it? And could be easier said than done, but the tactics and strategies that Courtney leaves us with in this episode are so good, and anyone listening can apply it like literally today. Like, I immediately after I had recorded this episode, I had jotted so many notes down of all the tips and takeaways that Courtney left me with in this dialogue. And I was like, this is gold. This is so, so good. So I am so pumped to be sharing this conversation with the world. Yes, because it's an incredible conversation, but I think even more so, it's a personal one for me, knowing that Courtney touched my life in such a profound way just a couple months ago. I mean, she still continues to touch my life every day, but specifically getting to know her and connect with her so much more closely and intimately when we were in India together was, again, nothing short of life changing. So I'm looking forward to this one today, guys. So enjoy. Without further ado, here is my incredible chat and conversation with my dear friend and teacher, Courtney Bohlman. Welcome, Courtney. I'm so excited to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you.
I'm so glad to have you. We're going to jump into all things your journey. But before we do, I've been kicking off the conversations this season with a little bit of an icebreaker question,
Mm.
which is, what is something that has been lighting you up this month?
Hmm. It's been lighting me up this month. I mean, right now what's lighting me up is this movement towards the yoga teacher training, because it's been the thing. I've just finished all my retreats for the year, and now it's the thing that is happening. So I've been able to really like dive into the energy more so than the material, and just like feel into this opportunity to just like be in the Himalayas and like be in peace in an ashram and like all of that experience. And every time I tap into it, my soul is just like, yes, this is it. So it's like lighting me up and like grounding me down.
I love that. And I am equally getting as excited. We were just chatting before we press record, receiving your email today, just giving some background on the yoga teacher training and all that got me equally so excited. For people listening, and just to give a little context, I will be in India in December partaking in a 200-hour yoga teacher training with Courtney. So it's going to be amazing. And I'll definitely be sure to record an episode post to share all the takeaways, because I imagine it's going to be so transformative. Well, that's amazing. That's definitely something that I could see, to your point, giving both the light and the ground your way. So I want to dive into your journey a little bit, Courtney. To kick us off, if you can share a maybe 2 to 3 sentence, we could call it like a Courtney elevator pitch of who you are and what you do, if possible, to summarize that succinctly.
Mm-hmm. So my name's Courtney. I am deeply drawn to the spiritual path and seeking connection with everything that is. So I've been called all over the world to study and be certified in these different modalities of, I say inner knowing, but healing and all of that. Ayurveda, Qigong, yoga, meditation, all the tools. And I've opened some schools in West Africa because I was a school teacher as well. And my movement or company, Wholesome Alchemy, is kind of the point of it all, where it all got to birth into one path. So that's our retreats, our teacher training. We fund the schools through that. And ultimately, I'm really just seeking the opportunity to help people remember who they are, and
Mm,
to be connected with all the beings, earth and spirit, and to just really call to the leaders in the world so that the leaders have a safe haven to come together to do that inner work, to renew, remember, embody, and grow, and to do that with peers, essentially people who are committed to the journey, to the work, because we're so much stronger together.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. On the point of wholesome alchemy, Would you mind sharing with us a little bit more on what exactly that entails? What do you do through your lovely vehicle that is Wholesome Alchemy?
Yeah. It's been transforming over the years,
Mm,
but it's kind of in at least right now, it feels like a pretty solid state of expression. But ultimately, it is the key piece, the key energy is intensive transformational retreats. But as I
mhm,
was saying, it's about community. It didn't start about community because I didn't really know what it was meant to be. And through the journey of unfoldment, it became this hub for really awakened leaders to just have a really safe place to come together and to do the inner work and to be held as they dive deeper within themselves to discover whatever there is within that. And that's that journey of unbecoming to become. And so shedding away what doesn't what no longer resonates or what was taken on that is not actually truth to reveal what's already in there. Because I always say, like, I'm not really teaching you anything. I'm just helping you remember what's already inside
mm,
of you. So I call myself a guide more than anything. I'm just guiding you back to what's already known, and that's through our retreats, through our teacher trainings, through facilitator trainings, online courses, and our sisterhood circle. But the recognition that community is the key, that we're not meant to do it alone. And that's the next evolution of humanity, is when we come back to community and connection and start to rely on each other, depend on each other, grow with each other, and to create that co-creative wheel where we each have that spoke, we each have something to bring, that once connected it is whole. So that
mm.
recognition that we're all needed and we all have our unique piece to that puzzle.
Yeah. Knowing a little bit of your story, you've shared with me personally on how you've grown the retreats specifically. It's so beautiful to see. And I've personally done a few different retreats. And I've personally firsthand experienced the incredible transformative power of being in person and just being a part of all these different activities. And you touched on the community piece. Can you speak to why retreats are so powerful specifically, and maybe how you curate your Wholesome Alchemy retreats to make them as impactful as possible? Because I think for someone listening, they're like, well, what's the difference between doing an online workshop or a course? Like, what about retreats is so specifically powerful?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest pieces is that retreats take us out of the reality we know. When we are
Mm,
staying in our environment, staying in our current experience, we're also staying really trapped in the limiting beliefs that we hold because they're surrounding us. But when we move into an entirely new environment, an entirely new space, it's like this big reset, a new chapter, a new opportunity to see the world differently, to see ourselves differently. So that's a big part of why retreats are really powerful. It's like getting you out of everything that keeps you stuck and placing you, grounding you into a new space of potential. And then the community piece is huge. You have this opportunity to recognize that you're not alone, that you've never been alone. As people start to share and open up, you see there are so many similarities in the journey and so many similarities in the experiences, even though it's expressed differently and it may look a little differently. Like, the energy is very, very similar. And so then there's that connection piece of like, whoa, we don't have to do this alone. We've actually never been alone. And that's really beautiful in its own way. I think part of what Wholesome Alchemy, our retreats, are really special is this capacity to hold the energy of the highest, of the most sacred.
mm,
I've been very, very blessed in my journey to have studied under some incredible teachers. And before I started my company, for 6 years, I was studying and facilitating through a different intentional spiritual community that ran retreats, right? It wasn't a retreat company, it was an intentional spiritual community that offered retreats. So that was the core essence, was this intentional spiritual expression. And I just learned how to be a really powerful leader. And I took a 7-month long leadership program and a 7-month long full self emergence program. And I just started to learn how to express myself authentically and to really understand what it takes to be a powerful leader in the world, not just, a business owner, not just boss or a manager, like a true leader. And that ultimately comes with the ability to lead ourselves first before we could ever lead others.
Mm.
So when I stepped into Wholesome Alchemy, it was like my entire journey had prepared me. I was a school teacher for 10 years. So I developed these kindergarten and first grade, so young children. So I have these highly developed abilities for compassion and patience and understanding and just holding space, deep listening without judgment, without criticism. And then when Wholesome Alchemy was born, it was just like everything allowed me to create a sacred space that I personally had never touched before. And I think that's some of the beauty of the community, is that there are people who've been attending retreats for so many years and traveled all over the world and done all this work. But when they touch into Wholesome Alchemy, it's like a home. It's something they haven't felt before. And so we have these people who are on their like fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth retreat, who are just so committed to this community and this experience because of how profound it is. And the more people who return, the deeper that energy is held and the more expansive that energy gets to be. And so the community is a big part of what makes our spaces so potent, because we have so many people who come back again and again and again and hold that vibration, hold that frequency, and commit to the work between the spaces as well, and just allow really profound transformation to take place.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. You touched on a couple things that I'd love to dive deeper into. Number one being leadership, and the second being more diving into the community piece. Um, I'm curious on leadership, especially because this is a word that I have been investigating deeper for myself as well. Like, what does it mean to be a leader? And I think there's always an invitation that's I think for everyone, probably calling them to step forward and be more bolder and embrace those parts of themselves. Were there any I guess challenges or reservations as you were on this journey of stepping more into leadership? And if there were any pieces of you that maybe kind of felt resistance or fear around that, or was it just this, it could be on the flip side also, this open sense of curiosity and hunger of like, no, I need to do this, I want to do this, what's, what do I have to learn here? Can you speak on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Yeah, so in my life in general, I'm definitely a natural leader, but that's just me being me versus like being placed in a position of leadership, because that scares me or it used to
Mhm.
scare me. So when I lived at this community, it was like they saw something in me before I could see it in myself. They saw my natural ability to lead, my natural ability to hold space, and all of these things that were coming through me, and called that forth. And I remember like heels in the ground, resisting, like, I'm not ready. Don't make me lead. And
Yeah.
basically kind of being told, like, you either develop here or you can't be here. You step forward
Mhm.
and you have to go. And it was kind of that call of like, you need to do this, or this isn't the home for you. This isn't the place for you. If you're not willing to grow, we can't hold space for you. And that was really powerful in itself. And so I said yes, and I kept stepping and had these powerful people who were showing me the way. I would say that's a big part of why I am who I am, is the people who've led me and guided me and supported me and saw me. And that's now the opportunity that I get to do for the souls that come into the community, because I got to see it in a really powerful way. But yeah, I definitely had a lot of resistance to leading and to the light on me and people looking at me and looking to me for guidance. Like, who am I? What do I know? And so then the journey really became self leadership, of knowing myself more, believing in myself, trusting myself. And the more I developed those abilities, the easier it was to lead, because I had my own inner guiding system. And all I had to do was trust that.
Mhm.
And it wasn't even about necessarily knowing what was right for everybody else. It was like, I know what is right for me and I trust me. And if I step in that direction, the rest will unfold for everyone who's with me. And that's a part of it. And then, yeah, it's something you develop for
Yeah.
sure. And there are people who are born leaders, but I've witnessed that the people who are the greatest leaders are the ones that had no desire to lead at all. They're the ones that
Mm.
were asked to lead because people saw that in them, people believed in them, And because that's that piece where leadership can get corrupted pretty quickly when it's somebody who wants power. But the people who don't necessarily want power but want what's best for everybody are really the best leaders. And usually those people don't want to lead, but are asked to lead, called to lead. So there's that balance of like trusting those around you that believe in you and are calling that forth of you, and then being able to trust yourself and to step into that innate ability that we all have. We're all leaders, whether that's leading ourselves or those around us. But yeah, I think it's actually, in my experience, the leaders I've met that I've really created something beautiful are those that are not seeking power in any way, but just truly wants what's best for everyone.
That's so good. And as you were speaking, I was thinking of that quote of, like, what's meant for you will never pass you by. So I'm
Mhm.
sure in those moments, maybe where you were feeling resistance, you were being nudged on your path. It sounds like you were beautifully supported by individuals in your life to continue encouraging you to do that, which I guess can bring us to the second point that I wanted to ask about, which is the community piece and the importance of having those people. It sounds like you were supported with your community on your journey, and how beautiful that now you're in a position to cultivate your own community through your business. What I wanted to ask you was how was the process of starting that community? Was it something organic that unfolded, just word of mouth? I think a lot of people probably listening, I think this is also has to do with just the state of how our world has evolved to be everyone's on social media and wants to go viral and become this influencer and garner the followers. So I think the topic of cultivating an audience and community is very hot right now. So I'm curious how the Wholesome Alchemy community came to be.
Hmm. Yeah, I would say it came through just my authentic expression.
Mm,
I don't run ads or, anything like that. I believe in that I'm calling. Like I always say, like I'm calling to you, I'm calling to the world, and whoever hears the call, answers the call, those are the ones who are meant to walk with me. I'm not I've really believe in self-led leadership. So these two are very interconnected. So the mostly women in our community are self-led. They led themselves to a yes. I'm not sitting there convincing them or trying to manipulate in any way. It's like, you know what's best. I don't know what's best for you. Maybe this is the community for you. Maybe it's not. I will hold the space if it feels right, come. And so I've just been for years just calling to the world, and I just do that through my authentic expression. I don't have any, I'm like I don't have any game plan with my posts. I don't have any like theme, like on this day I do this and on this day I do this. It's just like, what does my soul want to say to my community today, to my world today? And then I just speak and I just write on my post, and those that are called to it respond to it and are drawn in. And once in a while I post about a retreat or an offering, they like keep that in there, but for the most part they're just like my soul is sharing. And then yeah, people gather, people come, and obviously in person it's extremely potent. I'm so grateful for the connection I have developed with spirit and the ability to really allow spirit to come through me. And it's just this energetic essence that people can also feel on my posts and on my social media platform. And, I, the majority of the people in the community, I have no idea where they even came from. They just
mm,
were there one day, and you'll hear people say, like, I don't know how I found you. I don't know where I came from, but like, here I am. And then it's just love. It's real. It's genuine. The connections, the support, the sisterhood, and the brotherhood. But we have a few brothers and mostly sisters. It's just so much more than the moments we're physically together, the moments we're on a call. It's always connected, always supported. I see it on social media all the time, like the community posting on each other's stuff, so cheering each other along, sharing each other's things. And yeah, it's just been this organic creation built off of authentic expression and true love, deep, deep
mm.
love, and seeing and witnessing.
Yeah, and I can say I so feel that. I love reading and coming across your posts. And when you talk about the authenticity, I deeply, deeply, deeply feel that. I don't see you sitting behind like a later.com social media planner. Like I can see you channeling truly like every day, whatever feels right and intuitive in the moment. And I think that's powerful what you shared. And almost like I want to use the word liberating that comes to mind because I think, and I've personally navigated this myself, we could call it the trap of formulating the game plan, especially when it comes to something like social media, of like, I have to show up every day. I have to talk about this. These are my content pillars. Like, let's be logical and like strategize. And I think there's a place for that. I think having some structure can absolutely be helpful. And I think different people have different goals in businesses too. But I feel like there's something really liberating about just releasing all of that and just writing from the heart intuitively whenever that feels right. And actually, personally, for me, I found that those mornings when I wake up and I just get like a clear idea and I feel called to share it, it's like I share that and interestingly, like energetically almost, it holds a different essence and more people respond or react to it than something maybe a little bit more curated and planned and pristine. So I resonate a lot with what you shared. The thing that you were speaking to too that I wanted to dive into a little bit more is further, I guess, diving down the rabbit hole of community, but specifically around sisterhood,
Mhm.
because you do work mostly with women. And so I'm curious what your journey has been, I guess, niching down to include just women. Because I personally, for myself, have recognized the power of sisterhood, having been on multiple retreats, just women only. But I'd love to hear from your perspective why sisterhood? What is so powerful about just women coming together?
Yeah. Well, I would say that I had never like intended. I actually also fought the concept of like serving only women, and I've like still don't necessarily know because I truly believe and want, like, I know in the core of my soul, it's like all of us are needed. It's not just women, like the men are needed too, but it's become sisterhood because in my experience of 10 years now leading retreats, that it's women who are really doing the work at a deeper level. It's women who are answering the call. Like it's women who are really deeply committed to inner knowing and transformation and self-development, and I think it comes from women for so long being limited and trapped and stuck and told what to do, how to be, all the things. And so there's this like freedom that women are experiencing right now. And in that freedom, this like willingness to go after what they really want and who they really want to be and what really matters to them. And so naturally, it's become a movement of mostly women because women are doing it, they're doing the work. And so that's an element of it. And then the sisterhood itself, I think that there's just been so many wounding in sisterhood. And that comes from the fact that we live in a society that teaches us to live in our masculine, to live with competition. And ultimately, that's the biggest essence of separation is competition, me versus you. And whether that's for a job, for a man, or a relationship, or a house, or whatever it is, we've grown up in this world that says we are actually not sisters, we're enemies, we're competing, we're fighting towards this thing, which is that masculine essence. And that's actually not our reality. Women are not meant to be competing. We're meant to be co-creating and collaborating and working together to expand and grow. And so the sisterhood piece that I didn't even know I needed, that just kind of came through as I saw in these spaces the power that happens when sisters are held, when women are held, the opening, the connection, the transformation, the expansion. Because I also understand that we are all constantly receiving guidance, and we can only interpret the guidance we receive through the knowledge system that we know. And so when we're surrounded with other women who have different journeys and different knowledge, we can share our guidance and we can expand it together through our own lens and through our own experiences in a way that we could never do on our own at all, because
Mm.
we just don't have the capacity. And so to bring something into a space of women who are open and loving and willing, it can become something that could never have been perceived before it entered the space. And depending on the women in the space determines what's created and what comes through. But yeah, I think there's a deep healing that's happening right now in women. And we realize that all of what I've been speaking to, right? We're supposed to do this together. We're meant to be connected. We're not enemies. And, you know, even in motherhood and single mothers, and because we actually have a lot of single mothers in our community as well.
Mm.
And the kind of weight of that, of like, how can I do this alone? And it's like that same thing. You're not meant to do it alone. None of us are meant to do this alone. And as we heal from this competition space, we naturally come back together. And as we come back together, we see the potency and the power of this united expression as women in solidarity, in acceptance, in true love, our unique expressions. And there could never be a competition because none of us could ever be the same. We were never meant to be the same. And when we honor that authentic expression, then the concept of competition completely dissipates because it's not real. Especially with women, it is not real. It's not something that is naturally occurring if we're in our feminine, if we're in our truest expression of self, because we see very quickly how different we are and, you know, how similar we are in our deep, deep essence, but the uniqueness of each spirit in that space. That was a very
Yeah.
long
No,
answer.
I love everything you shared. It's got me thinking too about, because I'm getting flashbacks from like high school and maybe even like college in different contexts as well, um, of that narrative that was always just touted. Like you have your girlfriends, but then you look at other women who might not belong, whatever it is, whether it's judging or not including. And it almost like, I mean, normal is the word that's coming to mind. Like that was so widely accepted to be catty, to judge, to talk behind, you know, another's back. And it wasn't up until I did my first women's retreat. This was 2 years ago in Sedona. It was 12 of us on this retreat, and it was the first time that I ever experienced the power of like the sisterhood, where there were so many beautiful exercises. I'll never forget one in particular where it was like after the first or second day, we were sitting in a circle, and our facilitator had asked us to go around the circle and speak one or two compliments around just someone who you just randomly met. And everyone was just in tears. Like, I had never experienced this level of support and acceptance and love. But I think what made it even more powerful was the fact that it was coming from complete strangers. And I think it just ultimately goes to show that, and to what you were speaking to too, is when you release all of that competition and you just come together in love, there is this deep, I mean, community, again, that word, but just that support and love that reigns. And it's so, so, so beautiful. So, yeah, I feel everything that you were sharing. I'm curious on the flip side with the women. What about the men in your experience? Because you did mention you have some brothers in your space. What does that look like for them? And I guess their journey. And I also want to ask specifically because I saw you share a post the other day speaking to the men that I thought was really beautiful. So can you speak to that?
Yeah. So when we started, Wholesome Alchemy started, we had a lot more men in our spaces, a lot more. And I think as I've developed and as the community's developed and the sisterhood strengthened, it's kind of shifted and changed. And now I kind of joke about like we have our one token man at each retreat. This last retreat, he ended up being sick. So we had all women, 15 women. But it's interesting because the men land in the space, and every single time a man lands in the space, his first share is like, I don't feel like I belong. And so there is this like resistance because for men to move into, because my spaces are very feminine and it's really about the earth. And I like I always say it's about really like grounding, being present and softening and just like letting it be revealed, the revealing of the truth and the truest expression and all of that. And so for men, the majority of men have never experienced a safe space to do that. And so at
Mm.
first it feels really uncomfortable. Like they'll physically be like shaking. Like their bodies
Wow.
are shaking because they're so nervous to let themselves be seen and to really open their hearts and to really allow their expression to come through. And I think because it's mostly women, it feels more safe. And if there were a bunch of men in the space, I don't know that what happens could happen. But
Mm.
spirit doesn't let that happen. It's always like the perfect people and the perfect amount. And so there's a lot of our brothers have to break through a lot and really, really break through everything they've been told to soften and to allow themselves to come through. And then at the end, it's like the love for that like one man or two man and like the women, the way they like just see him and the way that he sees himself. It's really, really, really profound. But the rise of the masculine, just like women have been kind of limited and trapped, minimized. The masculine, I feel like, has been very cut off from its feminine self because we all are masculine and feminine. And so the men in our world have been told, be strong, all the same messages that we've been told as women, but you're not allowed to be soft. You're not allowed to be weak, right? Emotions are viewed as a weakness. And so what's happening right now in our men is like a lot of it became toxic. They were forced so powerfully into this masculine expression that their expression became very, very toxic. Or, that became over controlling, right? A lot of anger. And it's just like the masculine fighting to be seen in all that it is and not just what we've forced the men into. So this call to the masculine to rise because we are a counterpart. And I do believe that women are the ones that are leading the shift and the change right now on the planet. Like there's no other, the men have been ruling for a very, very long time. And the masculine energy has been ruling for a very, very long time. And now it's the rise of the feminine and it is the rise of the women. The great mother is something one of my teachers always says to me. He's like, it's the time of the great mother and men need to just step aside and actually step into the true role that the masculine is, which is to protect and
Mm.
to ultimately, yeah, to protect and to serve the feminine and serve not in a sense of like less than, but like to create this space for women to be creation because we do create. We are literally what creates life on earth. And so we've been so minimized in that. And what's happening right now is like the masculine is stepping back into that role of protector and provider so that the woman can be held and nurtured to soften into the creative expression. And what's coming to me right now is when I was in Mexico this summer, I went to the Temple of the Sun and the Temple of the Moon in one of these old Aztec cities. And at the center, at the front center of this entire mile long civilization was the Temple of the Moon, the feminine. And it talks about how they recognize that women are the creator. And it's like literally this city is birthed out of the temple. And it all
Wow.
just runs out through the center. And then off to the side is the largest, strongest temple, which is the Temple of the Sun, the masculine. And it sits on the side to protect and to provide
Mm.
for everything that the feminine creates. So we've seen this in history for a very long time that women, these roles of the masculine and the feminine, of the women and the men, and they've just got really twisted up in the more recent times. And it's just like we're remembering again and we're allowing. And yeah, it's we need the men. We need the men to create safety so that we can soften to create and to allow. Because right now, unfortunately, a lot of women are not safe with men, right? We see so much. It's become danger because that masculine is seeking power and control in an unhealthy way. This, like, I have my own rape story of not being safe with the masculine or with men in particular. And so calling forth of the divine expression of women and men, our masculine and feminine within each being, but also just the true expression of what men and women are meant to be on this planet. And when we can do this, we can return to that wholeness. And it's the same journey of like letting go what we've been told we have to be and being who we were born to be. And I
Yeah.
see it in like even my relationship with Ali. I fought it so hard when we first came together because I was so I was so in my masculine. I provide for myself, take care of myself. And he had to like sit me down and be like, I know you can do these things, but let me do these things. Let me provide for you. Let me protect you. You know, like he'd like hold my hand and like look both ways and then like let me cross the street. I'm like, get off of me. I can fucking cross the street. Like,
Yeah.
and he's like, he'll put me into the inside of the sidewalk and he'll walk by the traffic. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm protecting you. And I'm like, I don't need you to protect me. And he's like, I'm there to protect you. Like, just soften. Like, let me protect you.
Yeah.
Let me provide for you. Even that, I had to battle. Like, I'm paying for half the food bill. I'm paying for half of this. Like,
Oh,
so.
this is so good, Courtney. And like as you're speaking, it's landing for me personally because I have a very similar story with being overtly hyper masculine and this
Mhm.
there's nothing like an intimate relationship to be the ultimate mirror to really unearth a lot of this stuff. And so on the topic of women being more in their masculine than their feminine, where does that come from? I know people have different experiences and I've unpacked a lot of my journey, but if it's possible to speak to, I don't know, some commonalities and themes, maybe for women listening, they're like, and are thinking, oh, am I too in my masculine? And giving them maybe a little context of like, how can I start to understand where this came from and maybe start to change some of those behaviors and soften and allow to be led and protected and receive. Of course, that requires the safe space and the man to be present and foster that. But I think there could be a lot of personal work that could be done just starting within yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I would say 99% of women are in their masculine. Like, that's just the reality of the world that we live in. I think some of that came honestly from the lack of community. You see, especially like if you look in the West, um, the lack of community, even in family, right? A lot of places around the world, you live in family structures. So even if you don't have a man, you have men. You have this role of the masculine in your life that is holding you and protecting you and providing for you so you can really soften and let go. We as women in a lot of Western culture, we never had that. A lot of women grow up with a single mother or in a broken home with a lot of divorce or all of these elements without family connections, without community. And so we were never actually shown, we don't actually have even examples of healthy reflections of the dynamic of what it's meant to be as a woman and a man or a masculine feminine relationship. We haven't seen it, we haven't known it. And we live in a world that pushes the masculine. We were kind of talking about America for a second before we started recording, and it's this energy of like, right, the American dream. You fight for it, you go after it, you create whatever you want, and it's force. There's so much force, and that force is masculine. Force is masculine. There's no other way about it. If you are forcing anything, you are in your masculine. And if you soften and you allow, you come into your feminine. So we live in an entire reality of force. Like you even see women, this thought just popped into like marriage, right? It's like, I want to be married. Like, if you don't marry me, I'm going to leave. Or if you don't, like, that's even force. Like, that is the masculine
Yes.
energy of like, give me this or I'm going. And yes, there's boundaries, like protect yourself, like all of the things, but you can do that without existing in that masculine energy, that like pressure. And so the shift out of it can be really, really tricky. And I truly believe it's through community and safe space. I don't know that we can soften out of the masculine without being held. Like, I don't know that we can soften into the feminine without being held or protected or allowed. And because we've never felt it, how can we move into something we've never felt and we've never known?
Mm-hmm.
So placing ourselves into an experience that creates the container that we need, creates the experience that we need to allow this part of ourselves to emerge is necessary. It is necessary. Absolutely. I'm sure we obviously can do it to a degree on our own, but like I said, it's like, how can we become something we don't know? How can we do something we've never seen? And yeah, so a big part comes back to that community piece or these safe spaces where we can first witness others doing it, and also then have the opportunity and the surround to feel safe enough to do
Yeah.
it within ourselves, because safety is a big piece. The feminine will not emerge if she is not safe, and
Yeah.
we don't really live in a safe reality, in a safe world, and so
Yeah.
it's very counterintuitive in the
Mhm.
experience. And
Yeah, it's
community.
a journey for sure. I've been so especially fascinated on this topic of masculine feminine dynamics. I think because it unearthed, we can call it the disparity for me in my last intimate relationship, where similar to you, I found myself trying to lead and be alpha and all the things. And for the first time, I witnessed my partner not allowing me to do that. And that really triggered me. Like, hold on a second. But if we want to talk about an invitation to look at your own shit, like that was definitely mine. Like, okay, there's something off here. And so that led me down such a deep rabbit hole of reading books. And for the first time ever, coming to understand this concept of polarity and masculine and feminine and how that works. I think something that's really fascinating for me too, that I'd love to ask you about as it relates to the feminine, is this concept of receiving, and how when a woman is more in touch with that femininity, and I guess maybe we can say for the men too, it opens up this channel to receive more and have things flow. Can you speak a little bit about that, or maybe if you've had any personal experiences too? I actually wrote down a talking point. This kind of switches gears a little bit, but it relates to money. Again, going back to your post, because I just love what you share, Courtney. But the post I think you shared yesterday, you spoke about your journey with money, and I wrote this down. It says, stand in your power and the money will respond. And so I don't know if there were underlying tones of receptivity or femininity in that, but to whatever capacity you can speak to that concept, I'd love to just hear your take on receptivity as it relates to the feminine.
Yeah. Well, and even the word power, I feel like we often associate that with the masculine, but
Yeah.
power exists in both expressions,
Mm.
both in the masculine and in the feminine. And with the journey of money, absolutely, for me, it was softening into the feminine that allowed it to actually come through. For Wholesome Alchemy to expand, it took me receiving. So the beginning of the journey was a lot of that force. It was a lot of that um, need and that control and holding on and like pushing and pushing and pushing. And I could catch myself in it, and then I would soften and I would come back into that space of true authentic expression. And it's like you're holding the space, you're holding the tone, the vibration for whatever responds, whatever is in alignment to then be received, to come into you, to be welcomed by you. So the feminine is really that holding. I've said it like a billion times on this conversation. It's like that
Mm.
ability to just hold the frequency of whatever it is that you want. And the masculine is like that. I need to know how it's going to arrive, when it's going to arrive, what it's going to look like, da 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 da. Like the structure and the detail is all that masculine expression. And there's a time and a place, right? Like there's the balance. We need both, especially in business. We need both. But women are predominantly meant to express through the feminine. And so that's the counterpart. That's the reality of why there are men and women birthed on the planet today, and creation and babies and all the things too. But within Wholesome Alchemy, I, not even within Wholesome Alchemy, but ultimately my entire life, I have been able to tap into my feminine. And I do believe it's because I grew up with probably the only relationship I've ever seen, which is my parents. Thank
Mm.
goodness, of the truly embodied roles of the masculine and the feminine. And it wasn't like this forced stereotype of like, you do the dishes, you go mow the lawn. It was a true embodiment of their understanding of like, that is where they thrive. My mom loved
Mm.
cooking and creating and serving and doing these things for my father. And he provided, and he, did the physical work and the physical labor and like all of these things. And so I got to witness a really, really healthy dynamic of a man and a woman together in that way. And so I think that I learned the ability to be very feminine. My mother was a school teacher as well, from my mom. And so as I moved through my world, I could feel the difference in myself of when I was in that force or that receiving energy. And so when it came to my life experience, it was like I have always trusted my guidance. I have always, like, every time I had the little ping of intuition that said, do this, go there, step here, talk to that person, 9 times out of 10, I listen, even when it makes no logical sense, even when my masculine cannot comprehend the choices I'm making, I move with it. And then when I feel the ping of whatever it is, I just hold the vibration of whatever that alignment was to. So in that post, I use a lot of examples. Like I went an entire year not being paid, living at this spiritual community, and I traveled the world. I left and I went to India, and I ended up getting paid to do the YTT from this company. And it was because I just held the trust and the knowing that this was where I was meant to be, and the universe gave to me. I received everything that was in alignment with the frequency I was holding, because logically it did not make sense. The same thing with like Africa. I had this opportunity to go volunteer in Africa, and I had all of these things. I had a dog. I had 2 jobs at the time. I had an apartment, a 1-bedroom apartment by myself in Denver. Like all of these things that were needing me to give into them. And logically, it would make no sense to go to Africa for months and go unpaid and have all of these things. But it was the moment I said yes and held the frequency of that yes, I was able to receive everything that allowed that opportunity. I got, my landlords were like, you can stay rent free for 3 months because we believe in what you're doing. My companies kept paying me. My parents had to take my dog. Like all of these things came in. And so I think that we live in so much fear, especially around money. And we have to hold it and hold it. But money is energy. And the more you hold it, the more stagnant it gets. And energy doesn't actually stay still, right? So even in our own journey, energy is constantly moving. So we can either move forward or we move backwards. We cannot stay still. So even when we hold on to money, if we're not allowing it to be moving forward, it's moving backwards. It's changing frequency in a negative way. The moment we attach to it, the moment we hold on to it. And people live in so much fear around it. They're constantly holding, afraid to even go after what they want, what they desire, what their soul is longing for, because they don't think it'll come back. And it's like, that is how it works. We give and we receive. And if you want to receive, you have to give. You have to let it go. You have to allow it to flow. And the more you trust and the more you move and flow, the more it grows and expands and becomes something grander. And so I always tell people when they're seeking money specifically, like, I want this, 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 this. And my question is always, okay, and what are you willing to give? Because you are asking to receive right now. And what are you willing to give for that dream, for that vision, for that job, for that experience? What are you willing to give? Because you cannot simply just receive. And when you believe it's just receiving, it's kind of contradicting here with the masculine and the feminine, because if you hold on just like wanting, asking to receive, it's actually still a masculine energy, because you're not softening, right? You're not trusting. And so, yeah, this beautiful dance of balance, because it's like, don't get crazy. Don't go put $70,000 on a credit card for, something. It's like you build up to it and you start to play with it and you start to see and trust and believe, and it it responds to what you're holding. And so I always tell people that too. It's like, they're like, I'm holding the vibration. It's not happening. I'm like, but are you? Like, even though you're saying that to me, you think you're holding it. Your mind says like you understand it, but you have not embodied it. You are not actually at ease in your being. You are actually not at peace in your being with the choice that you made. And of course, you're not receiving what you're asking for because you are not in alignment. You are not in the frequency of the vibration that you are calling in. So it's so much more than just the moment you say yes. The moment you say yes opens the door. But that doesn't mean that you're stepping through to what you actually want. You have to hold that frequency until it arrives, even beyond it arriving. Like, you're like, this day, this is going to happen. Though that day passes, you are still holding that frequency. You are still in alignment with whatever it is that you're calling in, and it will arrive. It will arrive. You don't, the how and the when, like, those are the details we have to let go of. That's the masculine. It's just like, hold that frequency, hold that trust,
Mhm.
receive, like stay in the vibration to receive what it is you're seeking and calling in.
Yeah, I love all of this. I constantly am thinking about this, especially as I set new manifestations and goals. I'm curious to the last part that you just shared when it comes to that piece of holding the vibration, which I would say is definitely the hardest because it's so easy to fall off track. Tangibly, tip wise, advice wise, if you have anything that you could share, it because I'm trying to, maybe it's so hard to, I think, articulate and maybe verbalize in like a concrete way because it is something more here. It's something more intuitive and subjective that you have to do. But in your experience, and maybe with even your community, or people, your clients who you've worked with, any, yeah, I guess like tangible is the word that's coming to me, but like actual pieces of advice or tips that you can offer to actually staying in that frequency.
Yeah. So it's a feeling, but it's also the mind, right? It's these two. I always say that, like, our mind is like the steering wheel. It's like kind of like navigating the direction that we're heading. And our heart is the motor, it's the engine, it's the force that is pushing us towards these things. And they both need to be in resonance, and they both need to be active to actually move us towards what we want. And with our mind, it's been scientifically proven that 95% of our thoughts are the same thoughts that we had the day before, and 80 to 85% of those thoughts are negative.
Mm.
So when people are like, I sat this morning and I visualized it, and it's like, okay, so you visualize it for 5 seconds, and the entire rest of your day was the same thoughts you thought yesterday, or the same feelings you had yesterday. So this one moment is not going to overpower this entire experience that you've been carrying, this entire energy field that you've been carrying, these thoughts that you're so unaware that are naturally occurring in your mind because we're just not paying attention. So for me, like, I have literally creeds. I love my creeds. I have them everywhere. I have one on the wall. Like, this is one of my creeds. And I will read this multiple times every single day. I'm just going to read a few of them. And this is
Yeah.
the embodiment piece too, right? So it's not my mind speaking this. It is like my being. I'm feeling this. So I'm just going to read a couple of these. So
Mhm.
every day I hold myself at the highest vibration. I am in alignment and embody excellence. I trust my intuition and I follow my inner voice. I acknowledge all of my emotions and I navigate them with grace. I take radical responsibility for my life. I cultivate authentic community and empower my brothers and sisters. So I have this list that I come back to multiple times every single day, and I feel it and I be it. I have sticky notes everywhere. Money comes consistently. Like, we
So good.
need reminders. You cannot believe that you're going to have one single thought and you're going to rewrite your energetic pattern. It's just not realistic. And that's why so many people fail in manifestation, is because two things: lack of actual movement, lack of actual action towards the thing they want to manifest, and also the inability to hold that vibration. And so having things in your awareness. I have things on my bathroom mirror. I have them on the dash of my car. There's sticky notes on my laptop, the walls in pretty much every room of my house. I have my alarm goes off every like 3 hours for just a breath break where I calm down, I realign, I slow it down. And it's like, conscious awareness is how we stay in that frequency. We have to step out of what is happening right now in front of us, and we have to step into who do we need to be to have what we are calling in. Like, that is who we need to exist as. I like to talk about that with people too when they're in these moments of a decision. Like, I don't know if I should do this or if I should do that, like, because da 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 da. And I'm always like, okay, none of that matters. Who do you want to be? What would she do? What would she
Mm.
do in this moment? Because that's the decision you have to make a choice from. Because if the person you are right now continues to make all of the decisions moving forward, you will be in the exact same place that you are in now, because you can only move in this field of resonance that you are in. But if you can drop yourself into a higher expression of who you are and make choices from that place, that is how you create that reality. So it's the reminders, and it's the pause before we make a decision, the pause to not respond as the being we are in this moment, but to respond as the being we're becoming, so we can actually navigate ourselves towards that direction and that path.
That
So
is so beautiful, Courtney. Thank you for sharing all of
mhm.
that. And it's fascinating. I'm taking everything you shared to heart, especially in this season of my life. As I'm traveling and trying a new routine, being in Spain for the next 2 months here, I am finding such an interesting opportunity to connect with my intuition in a way that I haven't in a very long time, because I am on my own and I'm not around family and friends and influences. And so, what do those real time decisions look like when there's no one influencing me and it's just me? And it's been so fascinating to witness how I am struggling with deciding where I want to eat or what I want to do on different days. But that reminder that you just shared around considering who is that version of me that very, proudly and knowingly makes those decisions and doesn't overthink and is content with that, is a really beautiful reminder, and one I'm going to hold close to my heart, especially as I'm here in Spain. Because it's something, decision making for me has been an interesting journey, I think, especially having been brought up with a lot of strong influences and opinions from family and friends. So, as it relates to manifestation, but just even simple everyday things, I personally am going to hold that one close to me. And I hope people listening to see that as an opportunity for, yeah, just coming back to yourself. And, whatever it is, whether it is a manifestation for more money or a new job or whatever opportunity, it's staying the course. And I love what you shared about the sticky notes and those tangible little reminders. I hear it all the time. It's, do the affirmations and all that. But I think to what you shared about actually printing out a physical piece of paper, writing it down, and putting it in random places so you're always seeing all those reminders around you, it reinforces that belief so much better. So thank you for sharing all of that. Um, I want to dive into my last three closing questions with you now. You could take them as elaborately or as simply as you'd like. The first being, and you touched on this a little bit, so I'm curious for you to dive deeper in that, a piece of advice that you would share to someone who is looking to make a decision like starting their own business venture or maybe pursuing a side passion project, but has that fear holding them back or doubts or whatever it is in that masculine logical mind. What would you say to that person?
Yeah. So the reality is, if the fear is there, it will limit you. So there's this piece of kind of either embracing the fear and learning how to move even with the fear, or recognizing the fear and kind of building yourself up until you can move forward without that fear holding you back. So what I mean by that is, so there's like embracing the fear. I always say that's courage. So courage is being brave and afraid at the same time. It's feeling the fear but still moving forward and still staying focused on the thing that you want and desire. But then there's the other piece where if the fear is so real and so tangible in your being, it's like, if your fear is stronger than your intuition, if your fear is stronger than your courage or your belief, your fear is going to win. And so recognizing that, and that's okay, right? This is the journey of developing that. It's like setting yourself up then in a way where the fear cannot become overpowering or more powerful. A lot of people, when they move into business, some people just have this tendency to just jump. And you can jump if you can hold the frequency and the vibration and the destination. Like, yes, you can jump if you can hold it. But if you can't hold it, what happens is people jump and then the fear takes over and they crash. And so there's this element of like, and I'm not saying like always have a safety net or a backup plan, because I believe the moment you make a backup plan, it becomes your real plan because you're not believing in the plan that you're making.
That's
But
good.
yeah, but it's like, if you can't actually believe in the plan that you're making, you do need some support. Like, so it's
Mhm.
like, it's all about your ability to hold that. So I always tell people who are interested in starting their own business, it's like, how much do you believe in the dream? How much do you believe in your ability to create the dream? How much can you actually see the dream you're creating? Because those are the things that kind of determine how much or how quickly or how able you're going to be to create it and manifest it in reality. And it's like, if the vision isn't totally clear, if you don't fully know that you can do it, maybe you take some more baby steps into it. Maybe you keep like a part-time job and you have a little bit of income still coming in so that you don't have the stress and the intensity of everything depending on this thing that you don't even know what it is yet, to allow you to be supported and held, because then most likely this thing that you were excited about and you loved so much is going to be diminished because it is now taken over by fear and stress and all of these things. And so I'm more of a like when I started my company, I had a part-time teaching job. I was able to have enough income come in that I could actually create in a way that was really freeing and empowering and not like totally exhausting. And so I have a lot of people in my world who took leaps, but they couldn't hold the vibration and they ended up having to get a job again and go back to work. And, and then there are some people I know who took the leap and were very successful, but it's way less likely. And it's just because we're moving into a frequency that we don't know. We're moving into a belief system we've never held before. We're moving into something new. And so naturally, every moment we're unaware, we fall back into our subconscious pattern, our subconscious thoughts, our subconscious ways. So it's a very long answer. So ultimately, for people who are feeling called into business, it's like cultivate the dream, hold the dream, create the vision, and really let it manifest into something powerful that you can feel and be already before you even begin to create it into the world. And then when you start to create it, it's just like keep holding steady. And if it feels really, really frightening and really, really scary, and you don't think that you can hold that vibration, then stay supported. And that's okay. It's okay to stay supported as you start to create something. And when you can give everything you have to it, then you make that transition. Because I feel like there's almost like we give shame to people who like keep a part-time job and then start their business. And it's like, you don't believe in your business. It's like, that's not it. It's like, I'm moving into a whole different vibration reality and I want to feel safe in that journey. And so, yeah, it ultimately comes back to you will know. Deep within you, you will know if you are capable in this moment of holding that vision and that frequency and creating it, or if you need some support. That's like the biggest thing. I'm always like, I don't have your answers. It's deep within you. I can guide you to find the answer, but like you're the only one who's going to know if you're ready, if you need some more support, whatever the thing is.
Yeah, absolutely. So good. Thank you. The
Mm-hmm.
next question I wanted to ask was related to, or is related to, purpose. And that is, what does the word purpose mean to you when you hear that? And do you currently feel as though you're living your purpose?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, purpose for me is the embodiment of our soul's expression. Like our purpose, it's so funny. I have all these retreats and all these journeys, and purpose is such a key piece of it. I'm always like, find your purpose, live your purpose, bring your purpose. I know that I am living in purpose right now, but I also believe that purpose shifts and changes as we shift and change. As we become these new
Mm,
expressions of ourselves, it's safe for our purpose to become a new expression. Because what I've ultimately learned on my journey is that the only purpose in life, our entire purpose in life, is to simply be who we are. That's it. Your
yeah.
purpose is to be who you are. And the moment you are being who you are, the physical manifestation of what you're meant to create in the world will be born. But if you do not know who you are and you are not standing in who you are, you will never find the expression of your purpose in reality. But all you have to do to find your purpose is find you. Just find you, be you, and you will discover how to bring that into the world. And then as you evolve and change, that expression into the world will evolve and change with you because you are the purpose. That is it. It is you, completely and solely you.
Mm, so good. So good. I love it. Thank you. My last question for you. So, as you know, my brand is all about home, all things home, and I'm calling this podcast the Homecomings Podcast. And so, I want to ask you, what is your favorite memory of home?
I love that. And it's interesting because I had like three things pop up, right? Because it's like home is where your heart is, right? Like
Mm.
home, it can be this existence. But the first thing that popped up for me was actually like a childhood memory. um, because that is still a home for me. It's one of the safest homes I've ever felt or known in myself. And the memory that popped up is so simple. And it was just my family eating dinner at the dinner table together. Like,
Mm,
for me, I grew up in a family that was like, connection is so important. Spending time together is so important, to the point where I was annoyed. I was like, I don't want to eat dinner with you anymore. Like,
I can
um,
feel that.
so that's the memory that popped up for me. The memory of home is just like love, connection, community, um, a delicious meal, sharing together. It's interesting because as I'm speaking this, it's like, wow, I've, basically just created that in my life experience in its own extent
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're bringing a little piece of home that's so personal and near and dear to you, and translating it now through the beautiful work you're doing in the world with your retreats and wholesome alchemy and everything. So that's so beautiful and so powerful. Thank you for sharing everything, Courtney. Truly, you are a light, and I cannot wait for India in just a couple months and to experience all the magic that awaits, and to for actually it will be my first retreat with you. So I'll be experiencing that in real time, and we'll definitely be more than likely doing a podcast to retell all the experiences and takeaways. But in closing, can you share with everyone where they can find you if they want to learn more about Wholesome Alchemy, your sisterhood circle, all the things?
Yeah. So we have our website, wholesomealchemy.com, where you can really learn about everything. And then my biggest social media platform is Facebook. I share most of this through my personal page, Courtney Bohlman. And then we also have a Wholesome Alchemy page that I've made an effort to be really active on as well, that speaks to the essence of so it's like community and sisterhood and unique, like sacred expression. And so those are kind of like the themes of that page. So if you're seeking any support, guidance in those energies, that's all over the Wholesome Alchemy page. And then my page is really just that inspired, authentic expression that comes through each day. But Facebook's definitely my major platform. I'm also on Instagram just under my name and our company as well. But that's kind of the main way, our website or Facebook.
Amazing. Thank you so, so much again, Courtney. Thank you for sharing your story and your journey and diving down all these really beautiful rabbit holes with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Hi again, it's me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hopefully, you were able to garner some takeaways and nuggets for your personal home journey. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world if you left a rating and review. And if you'd like to connect deeper, find me at Studio Dumka on Instagram, where I share content on all things home, of course. Sending a big, cozy, homey hug your way, friends. Till next time.